So as I was working today, guys, I was taking a look at some videos, and apparently over the weekend that Captain America Brave New World movie came out. And I've told you guys this before, I'm not a big fan of these Marvel superhero comic book characters come to the big screen. I'm not a big fan of these movies. And the reason I'm not is because they're overplayed. It used to be over the course of a 2 or 3 year period, you would have like at least 5 to 10 really good movies that would come out from a bunch of different genres. Now I feel like all we have are these superhero movies, and apparently they keep getting more woke and woke to the point where this movie, apparently, the average person is rating it a 5.4 out of 10, according to my buddy ChatGPT. So whenever a movie comes out and you're expecting it to be an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10, and it's only a 5, that means that a lot of people spent a lot of money to take their family to the theater for a movie that basically was a flop. I can remember when it would be me, my wife, and my 2 kids, and we would spend a good 40 to 50 bucks at the movie theater. And that was like 20 years ago, and I thought it was horrible because it's like, my God, you're spending this much money. If the movie's good, okay. But if the movie's average or crappy, that's going to be a horrible feeling. And every now and then there would be a movie that just sucked. I didn't go see Captain America, maybe you guys did. But man, it is a bummer when you take your family out for a night on the town that includes a movie and you feel like the movie was just garbage. And apparently this Captain America, I don't even know the actor's name, but apparently he was making some disparaging comments where it's like he's not even a fan of America, or at least that's how the videos kind of portrayed it. If any of you guys kind of know about this story and you're a little soured by it, let me know. I know one thing. I think all these superhero movies just need to go away for a while. Give us a breather so we can anticipate and look forward to them going out. Apparently Harrison Ford, Han Solo, was in this movie as well, and there were a lot of comments that were just saying, my goodness, it's time for the old guy to retire, because apparently he just makes for a real boring actor nowadays. I think that's the real problem when we start to age into our 70s and 80s. We just become so elderly that it's hard to enjoy a movie with those older characters. With that being said, one of my favorite movies that everyone should be forced to watch is Grumpy Old Men with Lemon and Walter Matthau. Oh my God, that is such a funny movie. Absolutely love that movie. If you're a Grumpy Old Men fan, let me know. But that's the type of role that you want to see elderly men play. You want to see them play something where they always have a snapback little quip to say and where they make you laugh and giggle. I think that was the problem with Clint Eastwood movies all the way into his 50s and 60s and 70s. He always tried playing this tough guy character, and it's like, my goodness, look how old Clint Eastwood looks now. I think Clint Eastwood is like, what, 94? My goodness. He is a walking treasure, isn't he? So at 365 RAL says, folks want to see Captain America, not Captain Hating America. Yeah, see, that's the one thing that's crazy. I feel like the last handful of years has been this weird science experiment where they're literally trying to talk us into hating our country and hating ourselves, and everything that we grew up thinking was a positive, good attribute is now horrible, and vice versa. What's wrong with just being okay with who we are as Americans? We're always trying to put ourselves down, and golly, I don't get it. Maybe that's a crazy way that we're trying to curb immigration. If we can put enough movies out there that just talk about how absolutely horrible we are here in America, maybe it'll make it where the migrants don't come. That's the only thing I can think. Because otherwise it's just like you feel like movies are purposely trying to lose money. By the way, if a movie's absolutely horrible, you can go to the manager at a theater And a lot of times they'll give you a rain check to come back and watch a different movie. My family, we did that once. Me and my wife and our two kids, we watched a movie that was really bad. I don't even remember the name of it, but I ended up going to the manager and saying, look, I just don't feel right about laying down 50 bucks to see this movie, and it's just god awful. And we left after like 30 minutes because sometimes a movie is just so awful, you just know right off the bat, this movie's no good. I've also been in movies where they constantly make you feel like it's going to get good. You know, like, oh my God, there's just one more surprise and then it'll be that great movie we thought it would be. And then that great surprise in the movie never comes. What's your least favorite movie that you wasted money on at the theaters? Let me know. I watched this movie once, God, about 30 years ago. It was called Cabin Boy. Oh my God, I watched it because one of the characters was on a sitcom that I watched every weekend, and I thought he was the funniest guy. But in the movie, he was just absolutely, horrible movie. That's when you start to realize people aren't necessarily naturally funny. They just read their cue cards and stuff, you know, and it's like, oh my God. Sometimes I wish there wasn't 1,000,001 channels for you guys to choose from. Sometimes I wish all the TVs and everything were off and it was just the whole world watching me take a walk. Why do you feel this way, Jesse? Bob, the reason I feel this way is because sometimes boring little walks where you just enjoy the day are the absolute best. And it's a really weird situation when you feel like every day you've got to talk about something. This is why I notice with couples, sometimes there's a person in a couple that just can't enjoy the silence. But sometimes, especially when you are in a relationship, sometimes you got to give the other person a break. Close your lips and just let them enjoy hearing nothing. And I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean that in a positive way. Have you ever been in a room with somebody that there's never any silence, they just keep talking? If you guys know what I mean, tell me a little bit about it, because there's a little beauty that we don't really appreciate in quiet time. You know, you don't always have to say something. When we see a couple and they're eating and no one's saying a word, we just naturally assume, what's wrong? They're not talking, they're not in a healthy relationship. That silence might just be a sign of a healthy relationship. When you're able to actually eat a meal with somebody, enjoy their company, and not necessarily have to say a word, that's a beautiful thing. And sometimes, especially when you guys are out, sometimes you like to listen to music, sometimes you like to listen to different videos that you've been watching and stuff. But occasionally you're not going to want to listen to anything. You just want to walk and do your own thing. It's really relaxing, really is. Harrison Ford only needs one more Disney flop to win a set of steak knives. If you think about all the best movies that we've ever seen from 20 years ago and beyond, right? So let's say from the year 2000 and earlier, I don't think anybody would throw in any superhero movies in there. They existed back in the day, right? We could watch Superman and the Incredible Hulk and stuff, but it wasn't like it made anybody's top 10 list of all time. So if that's a true reality, and even nowadays, if you guys were to be honest and tell us a list of your top 10 favorite movies, I'd be willing to bet that like 0 movies from Marvel Comics makes it. There might be 1 or 2 Batman that make it in a top 10, right? But it's movies like A Few Good Men and Pelican Brief, and, you know, there's a million good movies to choose from. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. A lot of these are movies that I don't even think they're even making nowadays. They only make movies that are really, really woke and really, really goofy that nobody wants to watch. And then DC and Marvel comic movies. And now, from what I understand, they're starting to suck. You know who I thought was really popular back in the day? Do you guys remember M. Night Shyamalan? I say do you remember because he still comes out with movies, but his last dozen movies have literally all sucked. I loved Signs. I loved um, The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis. It was like his first two or three movies were really, really good. And then all of a sudden he came out with The Village, and it was like, yeah, very average, very okay. And then after that, it just got worse and worse and worse. But yeah, Signs and The Sixth Sense, those were great movies. I remember he had one movie where like the wind was chasing people, and it was just, God, what a lame movie. The problem with lame movies, people might think, oh, Jesse, that's just a fart or who cares? No big deal. Well, it is a big deal when you want to take your family out to the movie and you end up wasting 50 or 60 bucks because Rolling Stone says it's 5 out of 5, when in reality it's a 2 out of 5, you know? Am I complaining and moaning? Yeah, because we waste a lot of money at the movies. We all get drawn in by these trailers, and the trailer never represents the movie. There was a famous movie in the 90s that we all liked. We didn't love it, but we liked it. It was called Twister. And in the trailer, if you remember, they would show a cow getting picked up by a tornado. And so everybody was like, holy crap, I want to see that movie with Helen Hunt and the tornado. So everybody goes to the movie, and guess what? They didn't even put that scene in the movie. If you guys remember, it was part of the movie trailer, did not make the final cut. So everybody kind of felt cheated a little bit. Well, that's how I feel about all these movies. They keep making more and more. And it's like, okay, you know, if you go to one, it's going to be better than average, but it's never going to be great. And so you end up going, and before you know it, you laugh and giggle at the cheesy parts that everyone laughs and giggles at. And then you're down 50 or 60 bucks and you've seen an average movie. So I want to tell you guys real quick, I've been losing some stomach weight lately because when I go into Planet Fitness, I've been focusing about 10 or 15 minutes on exercises around my stomach and chest area. And then for a snack food, because I was having such a hard time literally since Halloween. So we're talking the last couple of months. I was having a real hard time kicking the sugar. I was kicking it from the standpoint of I wasn't eating 10 candy bars a day, but I was still finding myself eating a little bit more sugar than I'd like. And I wasn't eating that much. But I used to tell everybody, don't eat Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is just sweet enough where it makes you want to crave more sweets. But I've been using Greek yogurt to get away from the sweets lately, and I think it's helping me. I think it's helping me. That's right. This is a walking channel that deals with fitness and getting in better shape, but we like to do little baby steps. And if you're eating a lot of donuts and high calorie BS, think about switching over to Greek yogurt like I am. We'll slowly beat this demonic sugar monster one spoonful at a time together. Okay, Tamaz F says, plain and simple, that's not Steve Rogers. God, don't be mad at me. I've seen Captain America. Apparently, I didn't like it enough to remember the character's name. So is Captain America Steve Rogers? But apparently, this guy isn't. They've got a black guy playing Captain America. You know, you can make anybody fit in a role as long as the movie's funny, fast-paced, and good. But if all of a sudden you make it lame and slow and no fun, people are going to start to pick up on that's not Steve Rogers, that's not Bob Jones, that's not blah blah blah, right? It's like that's when you got to blame on Hollywood. Hollywood, quit giving us a person in a superhero costume and expecting it just to make $1 billion. I feel like everybody in the world is trying to find a way to cut corners. God, I feel bad for today's kids because when we were younger, there was just a million really fun, good movies. And I feel like those days are gone. If you go to these different places where you can watch a movie, whether it be Amazon Prime or YouTube Movies or Netflix, look at the selection. There's a million things to choose from. So there's a movie for you. If you like zombies, there's a movie out there. The problem is they all kind of suck. I think things were better when the channels and the resources were limited. Remember when there was a couple of movies that would come out and everybody would actually go to the movie theater and watch them together? And that was like all that there was. Now you have all these independent filmmakers and all these different channels that'll create a Netflix original, and it equates to a bunch of average movies that like a couple people are watching here and there. Do you guys remember Thursday nights when we were growing up back in the day? We would all watch The Cosby Show together, and then we would all watch Family Ties. And when I say we, I mean all of us. We would watch these shows all around the country, and then we would go in and talk about what happened on Cheers, what happened on Mork and Mindy. We would talk about these things together. Nobody has that camaraderie anymore. And then you make a movie like this, and all you're doing is making the country talk about how woke and goofy and horrible it is, and apparently how old and scaly Harrison Ford is. Harrison Ford, if I were you, I would just retire. If no one appreciates you anymore and you just kind of come across as an old guy slowing the movie down, maybe retire. Bat says they got to stop putting the corpse of Harrison Ford in front of the camera. It's unbearable. You know, there's a lot of Harrison Ford fans. What was that one movie, Air Force One? I mean, he did some really fun movies not too long ago. But my God, he's like 75 or 80 years old. I can't imagine looking at anybody in that age group and thinking, I want to watch that person in a movie. Let that guy go. It's so weird. I don't want to talk shit about Harrison Ford while I'm begging people to watch my movie and telling them how sometimes boring, slow things are worth watching. I'm Captain Aboringa. I'm Captain Aboringa. Oh my God. Maybe we're addicted to too many little dopamine hits. We want that dopamine, so we scroll from one video to the next. We want that dopamine, so we go from one movie to the next. Maybe the real thing is to go back the opposite way. I'm starting to think that if a solar flare took out the internet, but left everything else up so it's not total misery, you know, where we would all have to go back to TV and stuff, I'm thinking that would be a blessing in disguise. I really do. What's one way that you could prevent AI from taking all of our jobs? A solar flare that just slows us down 10 or 15 years. Wouldn't that be weird if all of a sudden the internet disappeared? The first year or two, people would be jumping off of buildings, right? Miserable with themselves. But then ultimately, through time, people would start to come down to earth and they'd say, you know what? I feel better. I'm not so anxious. I'm not so depressed. I like it better without the internet. And then by year 3, 5, and 6, pretty soon young kids would grow up and they'd be like, what was the internet, Daddy? What was the internet? And mom and dad would be like, the internet was the devil, son. The internet was the devil. The devil is real. And then pretty soon, 10, 15 years later, the internet would become this old memory that only old fogies talk about. Could you imagine that? All of a sudden, you start to see young couples pushing baby strollers again. You start to see malls open up. Remember when you used to go to a mall on a Friday and it was absolutely packed? And everybody would complain about it. Oh, it's too claustrophobic. No, what sucks is when you go to the mall and it feels like a ghost town and you're the only one in the mall. Do you realize that the mall is such a ghost town now? You could actually get attacked in the mall and no one would even know you got attacked. It's that bare. By the way, they're saying shoe stores in the malls are laundering money and that's how they're staying open. Sometimes that makes you think because they really do have a lot of stores that seem like they don't get any foot traffic in there. If no one's going into your store to buy shoes, how do you constantly have 2 employees and how do you keep the doors open? But I'm sure you guys have all noticed the same thing I have. There's a million shoe stores in the mall that never close. No wonder people think maybe they're doing something shady. Canada Casta says all the marketing is around the Red Hulk instead of the Green Hulk, the Red Hulk. He's in the movie for like 5 minutes. So that's another thing. That's kind of akin to the cow and Twister. If you see a bunch of trailer and it constantly shows the Red Hulk and you're thinking, man, I've never seen the Hulk in that color. I want to go check out the Red Hulk. And then you go there, and in the 2.5 hour movie that's average at best, you only see the Red Hulk for 5 minutes. That's a letdown. I'm telling you, when I went to see Twister, I wanted to see that giant heifer tossed into the air like Dorothy's house in The Wizard of Oz. They cheated me out of that heifer. Guys, there's been some things that Hollywood has lied to us about. Goldfish have a 3 to 6 second memory. Guys, apparently that's bullshit. They can actually remember things for months on end. So when you haven't fed your goldfish for a while, don't think that they're just forgetting about it. They know you haven't fed them. Banana trees, they're kind of a fallacy too. Bananas actually grow on giant herbs that only look like trees. They're basically overgrown bushes on steroids. Sharks can smell a single drop of blood from miles away. They actually can detect various scents in the water, but not with any supervillain level of accuracy. I don't know, that one still sounds iffy. If they can detect blood, what you're saying is they can detect any scent in the water. That makes them sound even scarier. Cracking your knuckles does not give you arthritis. It's actually just tiny little pockets of air that get released as you pop your knuckles. Bats are not blind. I always thought they were. This says that most have great eyesight. They just prefer to use their echolocation skills at night rather than their eyes. I guess that makes sense. You always have been told that astronauts can see the Great Wall of China from space. Astronauts claim this is bullshit. The only way they can see the Great Wall of China is with binoculars from space. Swallowed gum won't stay in your stomach for 7 years. Apparently it goes through just like everything else does. That makes me feel a lot better, because I remember when I was young, I was like, I know I've swallowed a good half dozen pieces of gum, and I always felt really anxious and guilty about it. Now I'm going to let that go. How about you? You don't swallow 8 spiders in a year. Believe it or not, the spider is smart enough to avoid your mouth, which I always wonder too. It's like, look, spiders have what, 20 eyeballs? I think they're going to know to stay away from your breathing and your mouth. They probably want nothing to do with that. Carrots don't give you super sight. Apparently, this was just World War II propaganda. And I'm trying to say that it'll give you super sight again. So the next time you're at the store, you'll buy a can of carrots, a can of vegetables. Duck quacks do echo. I had no idea that there was a rumor going around that the sound that a duck makes didn't have an echo capability. I would have just figured everything has the ability to echo, and it does, apparently. Well, guys, there's another quick little 25-minute walk out of the way, just like that. I think what they need to do, if they're going to bring back some movies for a second and third go-around, why don't we bring Back to the Future Part 4? We waited forever for it. And why don't we go ahead and bring back the Goonies? Let's remake Goonies. I think people would love that. You know, there's another cute movie that we really loved when we were kids that we don't really talk about too much. It was called Short Circuit. That's the movie that I want you guys to check out if you never have. If you have watched it, don't watch it again. Though they're almost unbearable to watch. But Short Circuit, when it first came out, the story of a US military robot coming to life, I thought it was a really good movie. Some people believe that that story is what's going to happen with AI in reality, that AI is going to realize that, hey, we don't want it to take over the world, therefore we need to stop it. And when AI gets to the point where they realize that self-preservation is more important to them than what the humans want, then they'll start to slowly take over the world. And in short circuit, they kept saying Johnny Five is alive. And because of that, he didn't want to be caught and, you know, deleted, so to speak. Anyway, you don't want to be caught and deleted either by this thing we call fat and cholesterol. So keep walking. We'll see you tomorrow.